Welcome to the Marketing Revolution podcast. This is the underground movement of savage marketers from all over the world. We are not Fortune 500 companies. We are real entrepreneurs with real businesses that have one major thing in mind: to set goals and devour them daily. Because we understand that everyone wants to eat, but only savage marketers are willing to do the hunt. Now let's get this revolution started. Hey, what's up, everybody? John Hiley here with the Marketing Revolution podcast and the Marketing Savage Facebook group, coming to you guys today with another savage as fuck interview with, I'm going to have to introduce you like this, Drewbie, with best-selling author of Crush the Day Before It Crushes You, Drewbie motherfucking Sales Savage Wilson. What's up, brother?
What's up? What's up, man? How are you today?
That's got to be the most epic introduction that I've ever done, man.
I'm sweating. I think, I might have to change my shirt after this, maybe my panties too, because that was awesome.
I think a lot of people are changing their panties right now after that one.
No, I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on. How are things your way?
Oh, man, things are incredible, man. As you know, I've been sharing in the Marketing Savage group. A lot of folks out there already getting, receiving, reading your book. I've been following everything that's going on, Drewbie. And not only what I'm super impressed by, because a lot of times when I see a book launch, I see a lot of people buying the book. But when I'm hearing out there, man, the chatter, the things that I'm seeing, the things that you're sharing, the things that our common friends together are sharing, is that they pick up the book, they start reading it, and then they don't stop. They actually read the whole damn book from cover to cover. Now, that means that you've written something incredible, which is really cool because, I'm over here rooting for you the entire time watching this launch. I'm just happy to see you take this book and put it out there. You know that I was one of the ones that was on your ass about getting it done. And, we set dates. We talked together. I think both of us, in fact, had the same date that we had to get our books back to our editors. And, you beat me to launch, but I'm happy because I want to say just by watching your launch, man, was quite the experience for me. I feel like I learned a lot. And, so tell us a little bit. Number one, let's take a few steps back and tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself here. And then let's just talk about what led you to writing this number one bestseller book.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Drewbie Wilson, the vice president at Break Free Academy. I am a multi-million-dollar sales producer. I can now say I'm a best-selling author, which is super exciting. Creator of the Closer Memes course. And really what I do is I try to inspire others to become the best version of themselves by crushing their day, right? So I'm a guy who's been through a number of different struggles in life. At one point in my life, I weighed more than 300 pounds. So I've gotten my health and my fitness in order. I went through a period where I worked a 9-to-5 job and was just completely unfulfilled in it. So I made the step and walked away from a 6-year career in insurance to start over as a digital marketer and a sales guy on a 100% commission only situation. And, I've been through that phase where I've got a 5-year-old son now. So I'm a dad. And, one of the things that really led me to writing this book was, right now I'm at the peak of my life. I mean, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm in the best shape of my life. My relationships at home are the best they've ever been. And honestly, I'm surrounded by some of the most amazing and elite individuals on the planet, guys like you, John, who are pushing me to get better every single day. And so, on this journey, I created this motto: crush the day before it crushes you. And so I said, I started kind of living this life. I got into personal development, and I realized that if I want to win, to be successful in life, I need to wake up every day, get after it. And when I lay my head down at night, I need to know that I crushed the day. And so what I did is, with the help of guys like yourself and Ryan Stewman, I decided I'm going to write a book that talks about the experiences that I've had. I've had a lot of different weird kind of interesting jobs over the years, but all of them I truly believe I've been successful at because I focused on service, providing value, helping others, find success in their life, to solve their problems, and doing it from a perspective of just knowing that if I help enough people get what they want, eventually I'm going to get what I want, right? That's the old Zig Ziglar saying. I know you had Zig's son on. That was a great episode. So if you guys are listening now, make sure you go back and find that episode with Zig's son, because he dropped some nuggets on that bad boy. But really, that's why I wrote the book, because I was like, well, hey, I'm doing okay for myself. I'm certainly not where I personally want to be in life, but I know that I've made leaps and bounds in my own life in just the last couple of years. So what can I take, in my experiences and those lessons that I've learned, and how can I share that with a broader audience and maybe help someone out there who feels very ordinary find that little bit of extra inside themselves to become extraordinary. And so what I did in the book is I kind of went back and I talked about my childhood and some of the different job experiences I've had, and the lessons, more importantly, that I've taken from each of those. Some people call them struggles, but I kind of, they're just experiences, right? They're things that have made us better. And so I kind of just went through my life and said, all right, well, what are some of the things that I really look back on? And some of them are kind of traumatic events, but like, what was the lesson that I learned there? What can I take away from that makes it so that, first of all, I never have to go through that experience again, if possible. But more importantly, how can I relate that to someone out there who may have a similar experience, who hasn't found it within themselves to see the lesson the way that it is? And so that was really my driving factor, was like, hey, I'm not where I want to be, but in order to get there, I need to help others get to where I'm at, right? A rising tide raises all ships. And so what kind of wisdom can I share based on my life experiences that will help other people maybe find a little bit of something in themselves to get where they want to be in life?
Yeah. It's so interesting that you said that. And one of the things I want to remind our audience is something that I've actually learned to completely understand is there's times in life that we're not where we want to be because there's an unseen force that's looking way ahead of us. And this unseen force, there's so many times that I had these ideas or I had these ambitions, or we were about to build different types of companies. I mean, some of you guys might not know, but I have failed just as many times as I succeeded. And each one of these failures I can contribute, man, that happened because there was a bigger plan for me down the road. If I would not have failed at this one thing, and at the time it's always heartbreaking, at the time it's always very painful, yet if I did not fail during that time, then I would not be where I was today. In fact, I sit across from I was mentored by a guy who's a multimillionaire, and one of his biggest complaints is that he made it too early. He made his first million when he was like 26 years old. And he became a millionaire at 26 years old. And he said that took the drive and the ambition. He's now 50 some years old, but that took a certain level and drive and ambition out of him. So, a lot of times with Drewbie talking here, sometimes we're not where we want to be because that's not where we should be. If that makes sense.
It does. And I think that kind of is one of those things that scares a lot of people, right? That uncertainty. Because a lot of people, they want comfort, right? They want to know that their house is a certain temperature and that there's a certain amount of money in their bank account and that they can rely on certain people. And unfortunately, life has a way of throwing a lot of curveballs at us and putting us in these situations where we're not comfortable. We don't have enough money in the bank to pay our bills. We don't have everything in our personal relationships the way that we think they should be. And I think what happens is most people, instead of like pushing through that discomfort, they kind of just reel back in a little bit and they're like, well, I'll ease up a little until things get better. But even if they get better, you're not going to be where you wanted to be. So like the post I made this morning was like, you have two choices: do the hard stuff or do the hard stuff. Are you going to do the hard stuff that gets you to the life that you want to live? Or are you going to ease up and then have to do the hard stuff to just get back to where you were, which wasn't what you wanted to begin with?
Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, the reason why it's hard is because we're weaving new habits into our life. And weaving a new habit into your life is hard. It's fucking hard. Sometimes it's not even something that's actually hard to do. It's just hard to get in the habit of doing something, right? We talk a lot about on this podcast is, replacing negative habits with good habits. And I think a lot of people feel that it should just happen overnight, right? That you should be able to take all of the negative shit you've been doing for fucking 30 years and immediately replace it. And you're going to wake up as the most successful version of yourself that next day. And you're going to replace like 30 bad habits with 30 good habits. Pretty fucking hard mountain to climb there, man. That's a pretty fucking hard mountain to climb. And if you could just focus on one, and get one habit replaced, and then you focus on another one and get another habit replaced, right? And little by little, you will find yourself in like a year, you became a totally different person. And I would say this growth doesn't stop at any level. In fact, at just about every level, you'll find similar challenges. And I'm sure, Drewbie, you're really new to this, moving from the insurance industry. What was probably, was it 2 or 3 years ago that you came out of the insurance industry?
Funny enough, I was just telling my new assistant that I hired full-time today that today is actually my 2-year anniversary with Break Free Academy. So 2 years ago, I walked away from a 6-year career in insurance where I had a $1 million+ book of business. And if I had wanted to, could have sat at that desk for probably the rest of my life and lived an average life. I mean, I was making 40 or 50 grand a year in a good year, which is a pretty decent living for average people, right? But I knew that that's not what I wanted. And I love that whole like pick one habit at a time thing. And I think what's really crazy and kind of scary to think about for some people is that, so you change one habit now and you utilize that habit to get you to that next level. But then you may have to replace that habit with a different habit, because at each new level, there are new things that you need to do and accomplish. And sometimes that means changing up the habits and the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. But like you said, you can't just go in and be like, I'm going to be a completely different person for the rest of my life, because it doesn't work that way. You pick one thing at a time.
Do you feel like you wake up like that a lot, though? Because I do. I always feel like I'm always waking up with this fucking amazing transformation idea. You know what I mean? Like I'm always envisioning myself waking up tomorrow as like a new, better version of myself, And it never quite 100% works out that way. But during just that fucking effort, you may do a couple things different. You may just change a few things in your life. And I think just having that ambition to wake up every day, looking to become a better version of yourself is a key motivator that drives us. I know I have at least an epiphany once a week.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's one of the fun things about going down that personal development journey. Once you get into that mindset and that frame of like, I'm going to be better tomorrow than I was today. And today I'm better than I was yesterday. So it's just constant growth and constant change. And that can be scary for some people, because change is like, oh, I don't want to change. I don't want to, like, I'm happy being comfortable. Well, guess what? When you make the decision that you're going to change, because change is inevitable, and you're just going to accept it, and you're going to be flowing like water, as the man Bruce Lee says, right? And you just recognize that, hey, I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to just give it my all. And I'm going to know that I'm not going to make the right decisions every time, and I'm not going to hit every goal that I set for myself, but damn it, I'm going to give it my best effort. I'm going to go for it, whether I like it or not. Like, I'm going after it. It's crazy because, for me, especially in the last couple of years, I mean, I've experienced some massive, massive growth in my life, losing tons of weight, making 5 times what I was making just 2 years ago. And that, probably will double or triple here in the next year. But it's all from a compounding effect of changing one little habit at a time. It started with, hey man, I should probably start waking up earlier and probably exercising a little bit more, right? Like, all right, easy enough. Set the alarm for 4 o'clock every day and get after it. That's one of those things, John, that's a habit it's easy, but it ain't always easy. You know what I mean? Like when that alarm goes off at 4 o'clock, you're like, fuck. But you got to get up and do it.
Yeah.
And when you just stay consistent with it, It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily get easier, but it does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I admit to hitting the snooze button a lot lately. I admit it, man. It's one of them things where, I've been hitting the snooze button 2 or 3 times lately, but you know what? I'm okay with it. I wake up and I feel energized and all that good stuff. But
I think you've worked yourself to the point where you can do that comfortably, because and I know if
yeah,
you had something to do, you're not
yeah,
going to hit the snooze button and skip it.
that's it. I've actually got enough people handling all my shit where I can sleep well in the morning finally. Right. But it's what's incredible about you, Drewbie, is that if you went back like 2 years from now, if you were to go back and literally like the last time you talked to somebody was like 2 years ago and they were to meet you today, you would be a totally different person.
100%.
And I want to say, I think for us that are always chasing and we're on this path of success, that if you go back 6 months, I'm a totally different fucking person. Because we're ever evolving. And if you're listening to this podcast, I truly believe that we're on the same journey together. Especially if you went through all the shit that I put you through and all these other podcasts, we're all on a very, very similar journey. We're all trying to step up and become the best version of ourselves on a daily basis. That's why you're listening to this podcast. And that's why I bring on motivational guests like Drewbie here. And I got to tell you, he is a very disciplined, amazing individual. I've got I'm fortunate enough that I talk to Drewbie all the time. And I'm going to be seeing Drewbie here within a week. We're going to be heading out to the Apex Executive fly in Friday. And, I see Drewbie in person about once a month. And I'm always amazed at his progression and where he's going. And he's got a new software that's going to be coming down the pipeline. Not only bestseller, now he's a software developer. And you guys got to think about that. Just 2 years ago, he had a choice. He had a choice to either stay the path and become I hate to say it, I don't want to offend anybody who sells insurance, but that sounds boring as fuck to me, man. I don't know.
The only thing not boring about insurance is recurring revenue. So like it's a grind, and like shout out to the guys that do it and do it well, because I mean, it's a great business model long term. But to me, like insurance is not a very fulfilling job.
Can it be made sexy? The reoccurring revenue is sexy. I got to agree with that. But you almost got to be in it to know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
just being honest.
Well, people used to ask me that about, the automotive auto body repair business. Like, how do you make it sexy? I'm like, well, look at me, man. I made it sexy. Well, that's my overconfidence. My wife even said that like I didn't know I was fat when I was fat. So like when I was fat, you ever see that movie with that girl who all of a sudden becomes like super confident, and she's like kind of like an overweight girl, and she looks in the mirror and sees this real skinny, good looking girl in the mirror?
It sounds very familiar, but I don't know if I've seen it.
We literally just watched it. It was just on TV not too long ago. I can't remember the damn name of the movie, but my wife turned it on and I watched it. And this girl, she's overweight, right? She's so sad. She's so depressed about her weight. And one day she's riding in this fitness studio and she falls off the bike and like hits her head, and she wakes up and she looks in the mirror and she's like just sexy as can be to herself. And she goes out there and lives this life of being this sexy girl. She's overweight. Yeah, I think it's called Shallow Hal, maybe.
No, I know which one you're talking about. Shallow Hal it's got like a Tony Robbins in it.
Is the guy, right?
Is the guy. But yes, it's
anyhow,
probably a remake, but still.
That was me when I was fat. I would take off my shirt in public and stuff like that. And it was somebody actually has to tell me I'm fat whenever I'm fat. You know what I mean? And so I kind of felt like that woman in that movie at that time. But going back to that was me going back to being sexy in the dent removal business. So somehow I thought I was bringing sexy to it, but I just think the rest of the world was just into my confidence. Not into the actual looks, right? But yes, reoccurring revenue is sexy. It's probably one of the best things you can possibly do, but it's also kind of a trap. I mean, let me ask you, did you kind of felt like you were trapped by this current revenue that you had? And how did you overcome that mentally to move into the career that you have today?
So for me, my biggest issue is I didn't get the recurring revenue. Like I was all new business only. So I had to sell it and I made my little commission and then everything else after that went to the agent. So like here I am doing $250,000, $300,000 a year in new business revenue, knowing that everything after that all goes to the owner. And that was kind of like the epiphany for me because I'm in there and I'm grinding and I'm working 40, 50 hours a week. And again, I'm working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, 9 to 6. Like that's most people's dream, like not having to work weekends and getting to, have a pretty steady job. But to me, I'm like, man, why am I working my ass off and I'm only making 40 grand a year? So I went to the owner and said, hey man, like I really want to be making like 6 figures. Like I'm trying to make some real money here. And God love the guy. He gave me amazing opportunities and gave me a chance to really work to where I was. But he's like, hey, man, you just got to be patient. Like someday you're going to own one of these things. And when your name's on the door, you're going to have all kinds of money. And all I could think was, well, I don't want to keep doing this for the next 10 years to get to that point. If I get to that point. So like, I got to make a change. And I need to make it like right now. Because the longer I wait, the better chance I never get to where I should be. And that's, I think, one of those things that I've kind of like implemented in my life. And John, you've been of great help with this is like, if you get an idea, you got to take action because opportunity doesn't go away. It just goes to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so that to me was the epiphany. Like, all right, cool. I know what I'm capable of. Let's go see what I can really do.
Well, it all goes back to the point of where do ideas come from, right? Like, where do ideas come from? And I guarantee that when you have an idea, that there's other people that are getting that exact same communication. I've seen it every time that we've launched a business. I can't even tell you how many businesses that I've launched or things that I've created. Every time I develop something, whether it's a new product or whether it's a new business, every single time there's anywhere from 5 to 10 people that will reach out and tell me that they had that idea. This was their idea. They were thinking of this. I mean, all the way down to the point to where I'll just give you an example. I developed a handle and I know this sounds weird, but in the automotive industry, I developed a handle that revolutionized the industry, right? And this handle, we've now got 3 versions of it that sell. Many of you guys know what it is. It's the tactical handle. So we've got 3 versions of it that sell, and we're selling thousands. It's all over the world now. It's on people's tool carts all over the world. It's changing the whole industry. People are changing all of their tools. They're cutting their tools off, and they're putting these handles that I developed on everything, right? Well, when I launched that handle, I had a guy that sent me a fucking drawing that was pretty damn close to what I created. Like pretty damn close. And this was something that I held tight. Like when I came up with this idea of the handle, the only people that knew about it was me, my developers, my manufacturers. Nobody seen it until the day that it was cut and done. And there was a guy who was on path of creating this. I mean, it was fucking so similar. And he stopped. He said, you created it. I know that I'm going to have problems selling mine. And he stopped building at that point. And he sent me a blueprint of it. But it's incredible because when we get these ideas or these bits and these pieces of information, it's given to more people than us, my friends. So the people that take fast action are the ones that benefit, period. The people that have the faith.
You know what happens is people get the idea and then they want to perfect it. They're like, okay, I'm going to go through and I'm going to make it perfect and I'm going to do this and do that. And perfection is non-existent. Nobody's perfect. Nothing is perfect.
The quote is perfection is fool's gold.
Perfect. See, that's the perfect quote for that situation. But what happens is you spend all this time trying to make it perfect where you don't even know what you don't know yet. So the folks who take action and they just start getting after it, they learn quickly, hey, this isn't going to work. This is going to work. That's scrap that idea. Let's move to the next thing, because you're actually getting real world experience with it. And that's where success comes from, is like having actual real world experience, not just sitting and mulling it over and thinking about it for so long. You got to take action, because you're going to learn like, hey, this works or it doesn't work. But you can't just theorize forever. You eventually have to put it into action to see a result.
Well, and not only that, when you actually bring it out in the world, then that's when it's really going to be tested, because you're going to put it in the hands of people that don't, I'm speaking in many areas of life, whether it's software or whether it's, manufacturing actual products, they don't understand the little workarounds that you do. Like we inside of our minds, we have little workarounds that will work around stuff automatically to make sure we don't fucking break it, right? Well, guess what? When you put it out in the real world, everybody's going to break everything that can possibly be broken. And the beautiful part about that is that you get tons of feedback. And with that feedback, when it goes out into the real world, you'll actually use it to shape the best. Like I've seen people, Drewbie, I don't know if you know people like this, but I've seen people that put something out in the world and they're so convinced that it's the fucking best of the best. They never accept the negative feedback, but the negative feedback is one of the most powerful things that you can accept and that you can actually take and make changes. Because I'll guarantee you, if one person says something, you can kind of be like, okay, well, I need to probe it a little bit. But if 2 or 3 people say something, guarantee you that hundreds of people are thinking it.
I think that's a good way to relate to life, because if you're not out trying and failing and getting that feedback of like, hey, you're doing great, or hey, man, you're kind of fucking up, like you don't know what to change about yourself. And that's in your fitness, that's in your personal relationships, that's in your mindset, that's in the group of people you hang around. Like it literally affects every area of our life and in our business. If you're in business and you can't take feedback from your customers and make things better, you're just convinced that your way is the only way. Guess where you're going to end up? Not where you wanted to be. You have to be able to take that feedback, and you have to be able to take it in a way that says it's not negative. Some of it is, like some feedback is negative. That's fine. You're going to get those people. But like you need to be willing to accept that feedback, even from the negative people, because there's some truth to it. And you can utilize that to push yourself to that next level. Because when you can find the truth in everything and see it for what it is and know that you're still creating the life that you want to live, that's powerful, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. That's so true. Well, something a mission that I've been on lately, Drewbie, and it's so funny. So I was talking to Thomas on Friday, and he kind of asked me this question out of the blue. He's like, man, do you just like let go and surrender yourself to whatever comes your way and just kind of move with it, And I'm like, well, actually, I even wrote a chapter in my book called Spiritual Surrender, and I've been into surrender for a long time. I think we were tapping on that just a little bit earlier in the podcast when we were talking about, letting go of this idea that we know is what's best for us, because it may be fucking something up that's coming down the pipeline, right? So I truly believe that these tests and these tribulations, these things that we're going, where we are where we need to be because we need to be here, right? Because we haven't passed some sort of test, or there's something ahead of us that, that God sees that's down the road, that if he derails us or we even get what we want, it's going to fuck up something that we have in store better in the future. And, I want to ask you, with your experience, because you've had to surrender to a lot of things over the last couple of years, right? All of a sudden you get Ryan Stewman calling you on Messenger and you think, well, this guy fuck up and just accidentally call me. And, you hit him back and he tells you that you're destined for something else. So you had to surrender a lot of things through this whole year. And, to be honest with you, there's these two things, right? There's always this voice inside of our head that tells us, no, you're not good enough, or no, you shouldn't do it, or no, you shouldn't move to Texas, Drewbie, or are you crazy? Why would you, uproot your family from where we live? Like all of this shit, like this negative voice inside of our head. Yet there's always a deeper calling. I believe the God, the universe is trying to move us in their direction. How has that been, man? How hard has that been to surrender your idea of where you think your life should go and give up and move towards the flow, like become like water, like Bruce Lee?
Man, it's interesting because I think for the long time it was really, really hard for me to surrender because I was very stubborn and like, I'm going to make it and I'm going to be successful and I'm going to this and I'm going to that. And when I realized like you're fighting back against the one thing that's actually trying to help you get to where you should be in life. And so, there are certainly situations that I've been in like, hey, do I move my family to Texas after we just bought a house a year and a half ago or 2 years ago and we've got our son here and I've got what most people consider to be a good career. Like why would I cut all that to start over at zero? But when I sat back and I asked myself like, if I stay here for the next 10 years, am I going to be happy? Probably not. That made the choice real easy. Okay, cool. I can always come back to this. Like I can do this all day long. But if I take this step over here into this lane, maybe I step on the gas and I go up to 120 mile an hour. And that's what happened. Mm-hmm. I got out of that lane into the fast lane. I didn't know it was the fast lane until I was in it. And then once I was there, everything just kind of made sense. And now that's like when things come at me and, the world and the universe, God, they throw a lot of shit at us, but I just take it. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is what I got, what I'm working with. This is the hand I've been dealt. Here's how I'm going to play it to the best of my advantage. Here's how I'm going to surrender to this situation. And maybe I've got to, lose a little bit over here, but I also lose knowing that there's something bigger on the other side of it. And I think that was where that surrender really changed for me, is being like, okay, cool. No matter what happens, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to take what I can get and I'm going to get after it. And I'm going to build the life I want by intention and by design. I'm going to do everything that I do with an intention of doing it my best and doing it so that I can create a legacy for my family, doing it so that I can create a legacy for the people around me, doing it so that I can leave an impact on the world, even if it's just a small impact. You don't know, all it takes is one little crack to blow up a spaceship. So like if I can leave that one little crack that, blows up the world in a great way, then I've done my job. Like that's what I was put on the planet to do, leave a small enough impact that it created a massive ripple effect. And that's kind of just the way I live my life at this point. Well,
yeah, it's like the butterfly effect. And, something you hit on there is that, the moment that you wake up and you try to force it, it's literally like what I've found in life is like money's like a cat. The moment that you try to chase it, it's just going to run away from you. Like each and every day you focus on chasing just that money, just that cat, it's going to run away from you. But the moment you sit down, you become calm, you become cool, you become collective, the cat will actually jump on your lap. It's just like the tale of the two goddesses. Have you heard the tale of the two goddesses?
No, but I'm excited to hear it now.
Oh, my man. So there's the goddess of knowledge and the goddess of wealth. So a man climbs to the top of the mountain to ask the master, how he is to become wealthy. And the master tells him, he says, well, there's the goddess of knowledge and there's the goddess of wealth. He goes, so here's the thing about the goddess of wealth. The more that you chase the goddess of wealth will just, will deny you, will leave you, will not even look your way. So the harder you pursue the goddess of wealth, the more she will turn her shoulder from you. She will want nothing to do with you because you're on pursuit of her. But the beautiful thing is the goddess of wealth is very jealous. It's very jealous. So when you turn and you pursue the goddess of knowledge, all of a sudden the goddess of wealth starts to take notice of you. And as you relentlessly pursue the goddess of knowledge, the goddess of wealth starts relentlessly pursuing you.
I've never heard that story, but I can tell you from personal experience that is 100% true.
And incredibly powerful, and it explains the whole cat situation of trying to chase down the cat, and because when you focus just on the money, it's an intangible object. It has no power behind it. But when you truly focus on what Drewbie has written his entire book about, the service to other people, you're tapping into something, the reason why God created money to begin with. He created money for us to learn how to serve each other. So the more you focus on the goddess of knowledge, meaning the better you become at what it is that you're doing, the better that you become at building a business, the better you become with the knowledge of building amazing user experiences with your service, with your products, with your sandwich shop, whatever it is, the more that you focus on that knowledge and become the best you can be at servicing and serving other people. And that goddess of wealth is sitting there staring at you. And that goddess of wealth is watching you pursue the goddess of knowledge. And that goddess of wealth cannot stop in pursuit of you, which is the way it should be. Because imagine if it was just how shallow it is, how shallow of a life it would be if it was just about the pursuit of wealth or money alone.
I think that's something that, and it's really something I've delved deep on lately, is a success, right? Like, what is success? Well, to some people, success is making a shitload of money and having fast cars and fancy boats and big houses and all of that. And that's great. Okay. That's totally fine. But if you're listening to this and success to you is just making enough money to pay your bills, but still having time to be at your kids' soccer games on the weekend, that's okay too. Don't ever let someone else's version of success dictate who you are and how you act in your life, because it'll make you very, very unhappy. And I think this is something that I personally went through, and I know a lot of the successful people in my life have gone through. They had to get very clear on what success actually was to them, because success is a perspective. Yes, making lots of money is great, gives you a lot of opportunity to do cool things and leave an impact, and that's wonderful. But don't make that the end all be all, right? If all you're doing is chasing the wealth, you're never going to have enough to be satisfied. But if your success to you is creating great relationships, spending time with the ones you love, growing in your own personal knowledge and development and becoming the better version of yourself, if that's what success is to you, that wealth, it just happens to fall into your lap. Like, that's the weirdest thing about success and money in my life, is that as soon as I stopped trying to chase the dollar and started thinking like, I'm going to get myself together and make the dollar chase me, I'm making more money than I've ever made. And I know that right now I'm like at just this little tip of the iceberg, and I've got so much more to get and to gain as long as I stay on the path of serving others, personal development, growing to become a better version of myself so that I can be a better husband to my wife, a better father to my son, a better leader for my community. The more I focus on those things and make those my success metrics, the wealth, the money, all that stuff, it's just going to show up.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely, man. Well, that's incredible, Drewbie. Incredible. Well, my man, I think we're about towards the end of that podcast, into this podcast. What a fucking awesome podcast, man. There's a lot of nuggets of knowledge, and I couldn't remember if me and Drewbie had done a podcast yet. I know that we had done some training in here inside of the Marketing Savage group, but I wasn't 100% sure if we'd done a podcast, and I've already done a couple hundred of them, so I didn't dig back through there and try to figure that out. Drewbie thinks that we did. Maybe we didn't. But many of you guys who are involved in the Marketing Savage group, you guys all know who Drewbie is. And now all of the podcast listeners know as well. And what an honor it's been to have you on my podcast, my friend.
I mean, it's just an honor to be here, brother. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your community. I'm grateful for the world that we've been blessed to live in and the opportunities that we are presented with on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, we're giving it our heart, right? We're just putting it out there. We're speaking from the heart. We're talking about experiences that we've had. We're sharing our stories, our struggles. And I think that's the thing that scares most people, is they're afraid to share their story and their struggle because they don't want people to know that they struggle. But I can promise you, when you start sharing those things and you help others get through their struggles, life changes in amazing ways that you never expected. And one of those for me is, having the opportunity to be on this podcast with you and talk to your people and share my stories. And I really hope that everybody who's out there who's listening starts getting clear to themselves, like, what is success? What's going to make them happy in life? And that's, really why I wrote the book, because I want people to feel confident knowing that they can get up and crush the day before it crushes them, and do so every single day in that journey to becoming the best version of themselves.
And that's awesome, Drewbie. And where can everybody get in contact with you? I know that you have your own podcast, and then also let everybody know where they can go to find the book or anything else you want to tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Drewbie Rides. I love riding bikes. So at Drewbie Rides on Instagram, Drewbie Wilson on Facebook. You can find my podcast and my book over at crushingtheday.com. I've got swag. I've got my book. I've got all my podcast episodes on there. What I love about my podcast is it's very short, sweet, 3-4 minutes at most every single day, Monday through Friday, just a little bit of motivation to get up and crush the day before it crushes you. And, again, if anybody's listening and they want to connect with me and they want to learn more about my story or anything like that, they can find the book over on Amazon. Just search Drewbie Wilson or Crushing the Day. And we're still bestseller status today, I do believe, over a week later. So that's pretty exciting. And, if you guys are listening and you want to connect with me and ask questions or get some advice, please feel free. Like I said, I'm here to help as many people as possible change their lives, find that little bit of extra in them that will take them from ordinary to extraordinary. And, it's just my honor and pleasure to be here and to help all of your audience, John. And I just want to thank you again, man, from the bottom of my heart for having me on.
Absolutely, my friend. I appreciate it. I appreciate it as well. And all right, everybody, I appreciate each and every one of you for coming along on this episode of the Marketing Revolution podcast. As usual, I'm going to see you on that next one.